Alrighty, so thanks everybody for tuning into this episode of Greater Than 0%. Today we have Robb Munger, who is the founder and president of Exodus Place. So Rob, thank you so much for your time here on a Thursday afternoon.
Well, thank you, Joseph. It's great to be here.
All right, so we like to start our episodes by just hearing the mission of the organizations we're interviewing. So what is the mission of Exodus Place?
We're transitional housing for men, so it's based on focused on a hand up instead of a handout. So we're different than a rescue mission.
All right, we'll get into the details of that, but before we do, why you? Why is this a part of your current calling?
Well, it wasn't going to be. My background is a real investor, entrepreneur, finance, and I ended up stopping and helping a homeless guy back in 2007. I said, "We'll work for food." Just with that chance meeting, I ended up, yeah, kind of going on a deviation, a detour in my career, and I thought I was stopping to help him, and it ended up he was really put in my life to help me and to have a different perspective.
Yeah. What do you think led to the point where you mentally were in a place where you were able to just make a pivot at that point? Like, was there anything that led into that, kind of fed into that, you being open to kind of receiving that and making this pretty giant pivot in your life?
Well, at the time when I stopped and helped him financially, I was doing very, very well in my life, and I didn't feel like I was giving back to people enough. I was writing checks, but I wasn't really engaged, and that's what really prompted me in the beginning. And I wanted to stay away from nonprofits. I really didn't want to be involved with a nonprofit because of the kumbaya and hey, they're on the business side, everything's based on outcomes. And it really ended up becoming a God thing. God prompted me just to keep moving forward in it because I really tried to get away from it. I ended up putting Tim to work for me for about 8 weeks. He started drinking, connect him with a rescue mission. I ended up being Tim's mentor. Then I ended up reluctantly becoming a board member on the rescue mission. And I really didn't want to do any of this. And then I ended up helping the rescue mission with their long-term strategic plan, which ended up kind of it was great. However, when the executive director resigned in a meeting because the finances were in turmoil, the board of directors looked at me and asked me to step in as the interim executive director.
Well, that's a lot of
And
pressure being put on you in a meeting.
yeah, well, it was after the meeting. Actually, Joseph, I thought I had done my God thing. I was like, hey, this is cool. I helped Tim, a homeless guy, check. Okay,
Yeah,
there's one
yeah,
box to get into heaven. I was on the board of directors of Rescue Mission, check. Okay, so I'm
yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
and what I've done at church. And so I'm like, check, check. And I can get out of this thing. And actually, I had told people in the meeting, let's just sell the building, pay off the debt. It was a line of credit. We didn't technically have debt on the building, but it was a line of credit attached to the building. So yes, it wasn't a mortgage, but it was money we owed. They stopped me at my truck because I'm a country guy. I'm not a downtown fella. And and they said, hey, who should run this place? And I said, I have no idea. I'm thinking some inner city, racially diverse, pastor or somebody. And 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 they go, we think you should. And I'm like, wait a second. I got all my other stuff. And at the time, I was living in about 6,000 square foot brand new house on 60 acres on a half mile on a river. I mean, it was worth a
Yeah.
considerable
It's like
amount. And
paradise.
it was. And then here I'm dealing with, you know, people that can't even afford a house. So
Yeah.
it was a real paradox. And went home, told my wife what I was thinking about, talked to my pastor, and they both said, hey, I think it's a great idea. And I ended up taking it over. Within 3 weeks, there was no money for payroll, no money for electric, there was no money for water. In fact, I had a call from the water company. The city said, hey, we hate to do this to you, but you are so far in arrears that when the electric company shuts off the power, we're going to shut off the water. And so I was going to resign. I'm like, hey, I'm done. My wife says, I don't really think that's what God has in plan, planned
Mm.
for you. And I said, well, there's no money, honey. And now I get to be the heartless business guy that shuts down the rescue mission. So I come back, I'm signing or filling out my resignation letter. Guy stops from the program, knocks on the door, and he says, hey, Mr. Munger, hey, I just want to let you know I'm staying in the program. You've turned this place around. There's a lot of paint and cleaning supplies, and ex-Army officer. When you have downtime, you clean and you paint. You're doing preventive maintenance. So that's what I've been doing. But it was interpreted that I cared. And he says, you look at us. And I go, well, the other guys looked at you, no, you actually know who I am. And so I'm staying in. And I said, okay. And he says, hey, can I pray us out? And I'm like, okay, that's just sucks right now because he doesn't know on my computer I'm getting ready to hit
Yeah.
send. He prays us out. I sit down. I'm proofreading my letter to send to the board of directors and the Grand Rapids Press. And because it was a real public thing that had been happening, the bookkeeper came in and she says, hey, we got like $38,000 that just came in two checks.
Huh.
And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And at that point, I just turned off the computer, put my head down, and it was just unbelievable. I mean, I'm a doubting Thomas. I have to feel things. And so I know, put my head down, praying, and I remember saying, okay, Lord, let's just rock and roll. I mean, it's not a real Christian thing to be saying as a prayer, but that was like a huge turning point in my life. I
Yep.
said, you gave me enough to prime the pump. So I'm going to turn this thing around so it's in existence. And that's what I did. I enrolled the men and women in the program and the homeless people. I got the staff around me, said, hey, this is what we need to do. I unfortunately had to fire some staff that we were top heavy.
Hmm.
But the whole thing is we ended up bring the debt down to almost zero. And during this time, I would go work out with the guys at the YMCA, and I was driving by what's currently Exodus Place. It was a vacant Michigan Department of Corrections building for halfway house. So people coming out of prison would come there, and they had shut it down a couple years prior. Ultimately, with my real estate background, I wanted to check in on it because I thought it would be a better place than our Guiding Light's current place. And I hit it, all negotiated. I want to say it was right around $4 million. And Hobby Lobby was going to donate the money to purchase it and then lease it to us and then ultimately, donate the building to us. The board just said at the rescue mission said, hey, you just got us out of the fire. We're still in the frying pan. We're not getting back in the fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at that point, I resigned. I tendered my resignation,
Hmm.
not out of disgust or anything. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like, hey, you guys are all set up. I set them up on, I believe in what's called a dashboard, so a financial and operational dashboard, so they can see what's going on in the organization, which they didn't have prior to me coming, and so that's how they got off course. So I had the dashboard set, designed. I'm out with my wife to a nice place for dinner, and had a God moment. I mean, all I can say is I started crying at dinner, and that's not like me. I
Hmm.
mean, well, not like me at all, and even today. And I just said, I'm supposed to be doing this. This isn't, God just told me I'm supposed to do this. So I opened Exodus Place July 2nd, 2009, with four homeless guys. Two were crack addicts, and two were severe alcoholics. And 2009, if you remember, highest unemployment, highest
Yep.
foreclosure, highest
Yeah.
bankruptcy,
Real estate wasn't going too hot then.
spike in suicides. I had,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
three people I knew committed suicide. They weren't.
Mm.
One was a very good friend,
Mm.
and then the two others were acquaintances. And then I picked guys. I mean, God put on my heart to deal with guys. Guys are not cute and cuddly. I mean, you look at little children, you look at puppies, kittens, horses, overseas, widows, providing food for people. It's a easier ask to say, hey, we need to. And so here I have these, guys. And Exodus, we assumed the building, a lease with the agreement I would pay the back taxes, which were almost 300,000. So
Hmm.
I was at the very, very back of the pack by like a mile behind the starting line. Okay. And the only way this could happen, succeed, because it was probably most likely going to fail, was if there was a God intervention. And that's what happened. We ended up working together. I ended up teaching people systems, put a one-page plan in place for business operations, the finances, everything. And now we're the largest transitional housing facility in the state.
Wow.
And so, but I was the unlikely. I went hunting with a fella, a good friend of mine, before all this. He was in a wheelchair, and his name was Dave Neeson. Loved Dave, and he and I talked a lot. I said, Dave, I get queasy, around you because you're in a wheelchair, and I haven't been around a guy in a wheelchair. And we had that friendship that we could openly talk, and and that's where he coached me as a, talk about what you feel insecure about. It's okay. I understand. Because there's a lot of emotions. Like for a homeless, if you deal with a homeless, you kind of get, you don't, at first, I didn't know how to deal with them because I didn't know them. I didn't have a relationship with them. I hadn't
Hmm.
been around it. And so God put me in this place where all of a sudden I started getting comfortable with people with handicaps, whether it's mental, physical. And I have a sense of humor, so I tease everybody
Yeah.
and mess with everybody, and they mess with me, which is awesome. But that's how Exodus plates really kept developing. I focus on John 3:17, and I'm paraphrasing, but Christ came not to judge us, but to love us. And so I tell everybody when they come through our doors, hey, it's not your job to judge somebody. It's your job to love them and encourage them. And so that's how we run Exodus Place.
Yeah. Wow. I'd love to hear from the initial four people that you started with in '09. What led to the now largest in the state? Like what over those, 15 or so years, what do you think has fueled
Uh,
that? And what activities and programming have you guys developed and evolved over that time?
Great question. The four guys, one of them is, I know one passed away from an overdose, and he was my closest friend out of the four, which is sad. He relapsed. Neil, when they started, they named it Exodus. It was Exodus Building in the beginning.
Hmm.
They looked as they were exiting homelessness and that they were paying it forward for other people.
Hmm.
And so that was their impetus was, hey, we are going to pay it forward to make a positive difference in other people's lives. And then that kept carrying on. We've done devotions at Exodus from the very first day. So Monday through Friday, there's always devotions. And then there's typically some type of Saturday Bible study, AA meeting. And then Sunday, the guys are either going to a church or we're having church there. So it, we have a real kindred spirit together. We don't, on the news, we see a lot of clashing of race, sex, and religion and politics. Exodus really focused more on brotherhood and people. So it's brother sisterhood. And so that's been our culture is working with people, treating them as people, not as you're a male, white male, or actually you're Caucasian male because you're not white. I'm not white. I know the color white. I have a white truck. I don't look like a white truck. Um, and so we have these kind of unorthodox conversations of talking about some reality because
Hmm.
homeless people get judged and they get labeled. Homeless, they have names. Jim, John, Joe, Pedro, and Darius. They have names. They're
Yeah.
people. And they're people beyond any race or anything. And that's how we've worked our culture at Exodus is we're working to have sincere relationships with people and to help them, and then they help us. I mean,
Yep.
our organization's not just a top down. It's a peer to peer, peer to staff, staff to peer, or staff to staff. We're working all together, and it's not. Nope, nobody's above anybody. I'm just Rob at Exodus Place. I'm not Mr. President or anything like that. It's just and I'm
Yeah.
only one part of the organization. I you know.
Yeah, what do you think is hard for that culture that you've created to not be a culture that everyone experiences in whatever organizations or societies that they're in? And we've interviewed a couple organizations that focus and support the homeless population, and this is kind of a question I ask a lot: is why is it uncomfortable for people to talk to somebody that's homeless, or why is it so easy to label or judge them? And how are you guys overcoming that and getting donors and people involved, and kind of navigating that challenge and those kind of judgments and stereotypes?
Yeah, great question. What I'm always working for is to educate people on meeting the person where they're at. I learned this right in the early days at the rescue mission. I had invited some pretty successful friends of mine, and the guys started telling the guys in the program what they needed to do. And I'm like, okay, you're talking to somebody that has a 4-year degree, probably a MBA or engineering degree. They're not there.
Yeah.
They don't even have a GED. So why aren't you asking them what they need? What's their problem? And so I'm always asking people to go upstream, find out what the problem is. I may like white trucks, okay? That doesn't mean you like white trucks. And so if I tell you, hey, go out and get a white truck and your life's going to be great, you're like, I don't like white trucks. Well, you should because you'll be successful. That's as ludicrous as somebody coming in and talking to a homeless person, telling them what they should be doing. It's like, ask them what they need, what the problem is, and talk to them as a person.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, There's so many people that are close to being homeless that are in nice houses. I've had them come down. We've given boxes of food to people where I've sat in the football bleachers at our kids' schools, and they're driving nice cars. They're living in a nice house, and they've come down and said, "Yeah, my husband or my wife has lost a job. We thought we were secure. Now we're not."
Hmm.
So homelessness can happen to anybody. So that's why that's we're not ever helping those guys like with our staff or volunteers or donors. I say no, it's we are working together because I'm one of those guys because something could happen to me and I could end up being homeless. Is it likely? Probably very unlikely, but I've over the years I've seen attorneys, engineers, pilots, professional football players stayed at Exodus, very successful business people. Something's happened. So that's where, as humanity goes, I think we need to treat people as humans more
Hmm.
than as homeless. And so that's my big push, even doing podcasts right now is our politicians are humans. They're not perfect. You know, do I disagree with a lot of the stuff that's going on? Yes. Do I hate them? No. And
Yeah.
everybody has good traits. They
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's a hopeful mentality. And I think we need more of that because it, at the very least, leads to openness for discussions with people that might have different beliefs than you, versus kind of shutting the other out and making posts behind TV screens or computer screens. So having the dialogue is really important. Well, this is great. So Exodus Place, we've talked a lot about the history, your history, the evolution to being the largest now in the state. What are some of the current programs that you do now at Exodus Place, and what do you hope it expands to over the next 15 years?
Great question. What we do, we focus on a global program. There's no, like, housing doesn't prevent homelessness. Housing is just one component of a global solution. So we provide the housing there. So we have typically 135 men in our program every day. We provide food, not just breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We'll also send them with a bag lunch for, when they go to a job. If they work a later shift and there's a gap, we'll leave a late play or plate for the men. Nutrition is huge. We get a lot of extra food, so we redonate food out. Then we have a workforce development program, which works on soft skills and hard skills. A lot of the guys go, yeah, I know how to work. Well, why do you keep losing a job? Well, they don't punch in on time. They don't show up with clean clothes. They don't brush their teeth. They don't take a shower. So we teach them the soft skills,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
talking to people. I've had guys say, I can talk to anybody. I go, no, the way you communicate is you talk at me. You don't care about me. You talk at me and you tell me what you're going to do. And we have a project and you've talked at me this whole time and we have done nothing to get started on the project. And all these other guys are standing around too. You're talking at me. How many jobs have you held? Well, I've held a
Yeah.
bunch. How many have you kept? Well, that's why I'm here. I said, well,
Yeah.
you need coaching. So we'll do the soft skills and then we do the hard skills. So we teach computer skills and tools, editorial, cooking, front desk management. So we work with both those. And then we work with resumes. Resumes are not as powerful as they once were.
Right.
There's so much of this, they apply online. I get a lot of donors that go, hey, we want this to go towards resume, building. And I go, that's kind of in the past. I mean, they don't show up in suits and ties anymore either. And we get people donating suits and ties, and it's much more casual. We also have a nursing program. Our med station handles the medical care. And then we do cross training for colleges through internship programs and then also classroom training. So
Mm-hmm.
Detroit Mercy will come in, Aquinas College, Grand Valley State University, ERR, Grand Rapids Junior College, Western Michigan University will send their case managers there that are trying to become Master of Social Work, MSW. So we have case managers also. So we have a very robust program for the physical and the mental needs.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a pastoral staff also. So we have two pastors, and then we work with outside churches and outside programs to keep the guys connected. And then we have devotions 5 days a week, like I mentioned. And then on top of that, we have the rec room area. We have a point store. The point store is to focus on giving rewards for positive behavior. And it came from, how do you train a killer whale? You don't bat them with a bat, you give them a sardine. When guys come out of prison and jail, they're used to being punished. So, you can beat them. It's not going to be for that group,
Right.
it's
Right.
a negative motivator. They just won't respond. They're like, just hand it to me. So what we do is we focus on a positive reward, which really kind of flips their mind out a bit. That's probably the funniest thing is you give them something and they're like, I earned this? Yep. This doesn't make sense. Why are you giving it to me? And so it's a reworking of a paradigm shift. So they're assuming it's this way, and we switch that paradigm that they are worthy and that they can do stuff. Our workforce development, I have guys that are working 3 jobs. They're working the front desk at Exodus, they're working their current job, which is 8 hours, and then on the weekends, they're picking up a third job either at like a convenience store, a store where they're stocking items, or construction
Yeah.
in some form. So they have three jobs. So all of a sudden, the money's starting to come in. And then what we do is we work at showing a spending plan, not a budget. When you
Yep.
have no money,
Yeah.
it's a, it's the funniest thing is I get wealthy people come in and I'll show them how to do a budget. Okay, they got $1,000, man. This goes to this, this goes to this. Then they have child support. They don't need a
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? They don't have any money,
It's all about
and
meeting them
so
where they're at, exactly what you said, right? Yep.
exactly. So those are the things that we do in harmony with each other, so that we can possibly move people forward.
Yeah. Well, you said right now you could house up to 135 men. Have you been able to track over the past 15 years kind of the impact, the aggregate impact that you've had so far? I'd love to hear some of maybe the data if you have any, and then maybe some stories of some of the men that have gone through and how it's impacted their lives.
Yeah, I I measure everything. As far as the exits, we can measure the exits. Like some months we'll have 10 people that will go back to being homeless, and we'll have
Hmm.
10 people that have solid placements. On that, a lot of the guys, um, they'll say thank you, but I never want to see you again. Don't take it
Yeah,
offensively.
which is good.
Uh,
Yeah, that's a good thing to hear. Yeah, that's
yeah,
like a goal. It's a goal of theirs, right?
it
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
and I'll see them at the grocery store. I'll see them at a job that they're working. They come up, shake my hand, and they go, "Hey, love seeing you, brother." And so you really respect that. We've had guys that have, in fact, in the last 2 years, we had a guy buy a house, and then so three of the men moved out, and so they're out of our facility. They're all employed.
Hmm.
The one guy comes back. The other two are like, "Hey, we we can't believe we're saying this, but we don't want to come back. Um, it just was a bad time in our life, and we're thankful that you were here, but we're gone."
Yep, yep.
The one number we track, and this in the early years, our recidivism rate was right around 40%. So if a guy
Mm,
came from prison or jail, about 40% of the men would go back to prison or jail. And then in Michigan, it was pushing almost 70%.
jeez.
So it was robust. Over the years, we've tracked this, and then we've been able to dial it in. Our recidivism rate right now is about 1%.
Jeez.
So
Wow.
you look at a community impact, that's humongous because as a taxpayer,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
it you don't see it directly in your paycheck or in your taxes, but the reality is it's one less thing that's an anchor to the community and to the state. And then the biggest thing is we're changing lives, so we're changing generational poverty,
Yep.
we're changing generational curses of, well, Uncle Joe always went back to prison. Well, now son Uncle Joe has a job, has a car, has, a place where he's stable, and all of a sudden it stabilizes a family nucleus. That's critical.
Yep. Yep. Wow. The last two topics that I want to ask about are your future vision for Exodus Place and then engagement. So, where could people find you to get engaged, and what type of engagement are you looking for currently?
Well, future vision is to use our standard operating procedure manual that we use to run Access Place, is to share it as open source so that other nonprofits can utilize it, gain knowledge from it, and then hopefully grow and become stronger nonprofits so they have better engagement with the clients that they're working with. And then the easiest way to reach us is through exodusplace.org. We have a contact page, and so you can contact us that way. And as far as what we need right now, we're really working to pay off our mortgage. So our mortgage is at 900,000. So we're asking people if they can donate $5 to $10, $15. Everything helps, So we're
Hmm.
not asking for $1 million, but collectively, we think if we all work together, we can pay off the mortgage, which then that allows us to apply more funds towards services for the clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's so exciting. Thank you for sharing that. So, people that are listening and inspired, please get engaged. Other than that, Rob, is there anything you want to leave us with that we missed or that you want to share before we wrap up the interview?
Just like we've talked a lot about, is just humanity. Treat people as humans and show them love and compassion.
Yeah, awesome. I agree. I second that. Hard second.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, Rob, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it and amazing work that you're doing and have done, impacting the lives of these men and women, and mostly men that you're focusing on, but these men. It's really inspiring and it's really important, the work that you're doing. So thanks again for your
Well, thank
time, and we're honored to share your story here.
well, thank you, Joseph. It's been a blessing to be on your show.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you. Thank you.